Good afternoon. Today is December 28th, 2023. My name is Dr. Atima George. I'm a Green Fellow with the American Folklife Center, a division of the Library of Congress. And this is part of Playing the Angels game, exploring Black Foreign Service women's experiences. And with me today is none other than
Zema Semunegus. And just to jump in, I guess, introduce myself a little bit more again. I'm a Foreign Service Officer with USAID. USAID stands for the U.S. Agency for International Development. And as a Foreign Service Officer or diplomat, I'm basically for most of my career have been posted overseas. Currently, I'm serving in Fiji as the director of the USAID mission in the Pacific Islands. And it is the first mission to be launched in the Pacific Islands since 1994. So that's by way of introduction.
beautiful. May I ask you, what inspired you to pursue this career path?
Sure. Very good question, as usual, Dr. George. So I was born overseas, and I'm originally from Ethiopia in the sense that I was born there. My mom is Eritrean, which is a new country, a newish country, I guess, in Africa. So that mixed heritage also kind of opened my eyes, I think, to what's out there. Yeah. So, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures already as a young girl. And my grandfather on my mom's side was a very educated, self-educated man who had a lot of books at home. I remember he had National Geographic magazines, all the issues you can think of. And so I explored the world with him, and he would always make sure, like as soon as we went into his home, almost every Sunday, he would have a little chair prepared for me, in his library area, in the area where he had all these magazines, and encouraged me in that sense. He would say like, "Oh, this one likes to read." And then once we had in 1984, we had to flee Ethiopia because of the political situation being, increasingly dangerous for my family, especially my dad. He was doing so well in his work, exploring, expanding the government's crop production. He did his PhD in the U.S. in horticulture. So he came back with a lot of great ideas and connections that he was bringing forward into his job, private sector connections, UN. We grew up, meeting with UN agency types of people coming to our homes, and all the cocktails and stuff like that. So, but that caught the attention of the dictator in Ethiopia at the time, Mengistu Haile Mariam. And my dad felt unsafe for himself and for us. So we literally left Ethiopia in the middle of the night. We were told not to tell our friends, which was very hard. And family members, a couple of them knew, but it was for me and my sisters, we were asked to keep quiet. My brother was very young, my younger brother. So the three of us, were especially very quiet. And so that immigration process was difficult. And moving to North Carolina in the 80s, where, we were completely different than everyone else. It's a little bit better now in the area where we grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, the capital. But at the time, it was also, Ethiopia was known as having so much famine and so much going on. The civil war was horrendous. So it was a difficult time, except for the fact that my parents made sure we were, we got the encouragement and help that we needed, especially me. I felt always that I benefited from both my mom, who was also a very educated woman. She used to teach at the university in Ethiopia, the National University, Addis Ababa University, in the capital, and had a high profile of her own. And then in the US, in North Carolina, she was studying for her PhD. My dad already had his. By the way, between the two of them, they have 6 degrees. So I've lost count who has which degree. But both scientists.
What is your mother's discipline?
So hers is biology, and she did her 2 masters were, I think, biology, but her PhD was on plant pathology, which is very difficult. In fact, moving to the US to do her PhD was much harder for her than my dad in terms of the gender balance that women have to bear in terms of child care. So even though she was the one who was studying, my dad having to travel for his work and living overseas for very long stretches of time, she had to raise us as well. And that change was very difficult for her, more than any one of us, actually. So in the end, I think her PhD program, she was forced to downgrade it herself to a master's. So she has 2 master's degrees in the sciences and a bachelor's as well, instead of the PhD that she really wanted. She still talks about that, and it's something that she regrets not being able to do. But she did raise 4 of us very successfully, as we often point out to her. And all of us ended up graduating from the same university she went to, NC State University. The family unit stayed together, and that was very important to my parents because they knew they kind of saw the future, and they knew that it would be easier for us to stay home and to live in North Carolina, and in the sense that it's more of a family place, that a place where education is very affordable as well. So and so in a way they prepared us for a good career and life experience looking forward. And I think for me especially, it was easy enough to excel in school. It was easy in high school, but also in college. I graduated with a bachelor's in international business with high honors, and then also got a scholarship to go to Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, at the Homewood campus to do my master's in policy studies. And all along, I focused on international health or something international business. My BA was in international business, and then also grad school was international development, with a focus on public policy, policies that relate to women and childcare, and also health in general. I'm hoping to go back and finish my second master's, an MPH, Masters of Public Health, when I retire. I kind of ran out of time at the end of my 2 years at Hopkins. But anyway, that's a long story short. The reason after that I immediately jumped into a career at USAID was it presents all the opportunities. It kind of was a good summary of my life so far at that point, like a career whereby I can give back, service is big for my parents. My mom also she didn't work in the UN, but wherever my dad went, she would make sure she would volunteer to be a teacher in the international school, or she always kept an eye on her community. I haven't really worked in the sciences as much as my parents did, but that's something that didn't naturally come to me. But everything I've done has been focused on leadership, management types of roles, and also with a special interest wherever I can to support public health priorities of whichever country I've served in, and also to support women and children in that regard. That's been gender gender equality and economic empowerment are things that I've tried to highlight throughout my career. And definitely humanitarian assistance. That was the first thing I did, actually. My first job was working for a humanitarian focused NGO, for-profit NGO called the Mitchell Group, African American business consulting business that served USAID's Office of Foreign Disaster Assistance. So through that contract, I worked for 5 years in very humanitarian focused programs. And then throughout my career, I've always worked in humanitarian assistance or food assistance, food security included.
I noticed your pictures with children, and I think these may have been either refugee children or internally displaced children.
Yeah.
You have gravitated to places on the planet that are facing challenges, whether they were provoked by a natural disaster or some type of political upheaval.
That's right.
Share a little bit of that with us?
Sure. Thank you for noticing that. Yeah, I'm actually realizing now at the end of my career almost, well, I'm eligible for retirement actually right now, and at the very least. So what I have looking back and looking at those photos recently and sharing them with you, I did realize that, and it's something subliminal. Like, I didn't really think of it as a focus, but I think it's because of the conflict that I saw growing up and the noticing, I think, without even processing it, I think I guess the specific impact conflict has on women and children. So if you look at those pictures, you'll see, like, the one I think you're referring to was a refugee camp full of children that I was visiting with some colleagues in Albania. So we had been sent there to look at the impact of the NATO, the conflict in the Kosovo area in 1999, 1998. So that's where you see a lot of the men in those photos, smoking or drinking, like really traumatized men and women. But the children were also, like, to me, just as happy and lively as they could be running towards me. They felt safe with me, I think, because I am actually American. They could tell immediately that I was American or from the American government. And I think it's because I look different. No one else in the pictures were being taken of me were taken by colleagues who were white, who looked like the children. But the children came to me. So I thought that was so cool at the time. I was like, wow, they actually feel safe with me. So given my own experience, sorry, but it just was so meaningful that, sorry, I made them so happy. So actually, a couple of them had their arms around me. I don't know if you can see that in the photo. So I was so happy in that picture, you can tell. That's why I shared it with you. Sorry, I'll just take one.
There is absolutely no need to apologize. I can tell that you're moved, and it says something about your commitment to this work. So
yeah. Thank you.
It just reveals who you are. And
thank you.
I'm right here saying thank you for your service, honestly.
Thank you. It meant a lot to me, the world to me, that they were so happy, because I know what war does to people. Macedonia is another place where I ended up going, and I even traveled to Kosovo by car at one point, and I didn't see that level of conflict close up. We were exposed to some people who were killed on the streets of Addis, but not every day, not to the level of what we saw in Kosovo. But either way, we all have, it's a difficult situation that was created in Ethiopia for us, and we're moving forward. And I think my career has given me more of the resilience that I need. Even though I sound like I'm still sad about it, I think I've given back a lot I've been very focused on giving back as much as I can to my country, my adopted country, the U.S., to be serving as a USAID Foreign Service Officer is my way of saying thank you for giving us a safe haven here, for all the opportunities I've had. But it's also a recognition of what, to me, what my parents taught us, which is be humble, work hard, and also don't expect to always be the one to receive. By being able to be humble, which they're very humble people. So they have expressed, a lot of, they have given so much of themselves to us. They've given so much good energy. And I've always wanted to make sure I give that back to the world. I don't know if that makes sense. Like any hardship I've gone to, it's like the back of my mind, I have that like support system, even though they're not with me. So the Foreign Service has been the perfect place for me to answer the question more clearly. It's the perfect job. That's why I never left to do some other role or join the private sector or anything like that. Every day it's a pleasure to work in a position where you are actively helping the world become a better place. You're serving others, and you're learning all the time, and that's what those three things have been very important to me, and I've been able to work on that, and benefit from that as an FSL.
Really, really beautiful. And I find it interesting that you talk about your parents' legacy, and I see it in you, and their insistence that you be humbled. And yet there's the paradox that they were also very accomplished. And that's not mutually exclusive. That's a wonderful combination.
Yes.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. So you were exposed as a very young child, a young person, to the multilateral system, the United Nations system. You became a diplomat and are currently working, and again in a multilateral frame. You have 9 countries that you're accredited to.
Yes.
How do you see the difference working in a bilateral setting where it's just the US and one partner country versus a multilateral setting?
It's a really good question. So in my role in South Africa, where my first position, I had served in a regional role, which included some of the non-presence countries for USAID, like Botswana at the time and Lesotho. And Swaziland was another one, although it has a different name now. I forget.
Genie, I think it is.
Yeah. But in my follow-up position after that, my second assignment was in Senegal, where I was a regional director based in Dakar, Senegal, for almost all of West Africa. So, and that was a food for peace or food aid or food assistance, more humanitarian role that I had. So I had already been exposed to this model of like a sub-region, and I really appreciated and learned a lot from that role. So that's why I jumped on the USAID Pacific mission position. I had learned a lot of good lessons about how to manage remotely, for instance. Some of the best practices that I picked up from that process, from that role in Senegal. I knew I would be able to replicate that in the Pacific Islands. But the main difference is, when you look at programs, is that you have one partner usually on the bilateral sense. So I've served in those types of countries too, in Israel and also in South Sudan. And in those situations, it's more direct communications with officials, and you don't really have to work so hard to make sure you're keeping all the different regional partners and coordination within the interagency and the UN agencies that are also involved. It gets a little bit more complicated for sure. But it's for me, I'm adaptable and able to I don't easily get overwhelmed, so I just try to focus on what USAID's priorities are. And when you're sworn in as a USAID Mission Director, you're actually asked to come in to USAID Washington, do your consultations, but also get sworn in officially, and you get to meet the bilateral and or regional officials that are in the US that you'll be working with. So in my first directorship, I was actually I was already in the US, so it was easy enough to attend my swearing in with my family there, even though it was at the end of the COVID pandemic. We still managed to do it virtually and partially in person. So my brother got to come with his kids fully masked. But that was really nice. But I got to meet the ambassador, the Timorese ambassador to the US. And the swearing in itself with the oath of office was kind of grounded me into that role, which was great. And then, it was quite clear, actually very set in that role, that I would have number of implementing partners, and a certain number of UN groups that would be, or donor groups that I would be working with. And moving it into the Fiji directorship, which is completely different, I did see it. It was the same process, by the way. The administrator still sworn me in, but actually at my suggestion, she was able to swear me in Fiji. And she told me that it was the first time USAID had sworn in a mission director in the Pacific Islands. So that was because in the early 90s, we had a small mission in Fiji. And so in addition to launching the new mission in Suva, Fiji, I was also sworn in there. And in both directorships, I was actually given a letter of intent, and not just a swearing in, but she actually presented me and other MDs, mission directors, with her letter of instruction, I should say, not intent, describing her priorities and policies that we need to keep in mind, I need to keep in mind. But for the Pacific Island, since it was so unique and new, actually the letter of instruction was quite clear and very useful for me to this day. She put a lot of her time, the administrator power, in drafting this. So the rituals are, you could say, similar, but looking even at the letter of instruction recently, I have a lot more engagements to go to, and lots of countries that I've been asked to already visit, and I've been happy to do so. And I have more of a representational role in a way, because as a regional mission, you're at the level of almost like representing the US government in these conferences. I'm as a development expert, who else is going to be sent to an event that has to do with climate change? If it's, let's say, in Samoa, it's going to be someone like me, given the high level representation. And finally, I think personally, since I'm ranked as a senior foreign service officer, it's in this role even more important, been very important and very relevant that I do a lot more representational role. And there's several ambassadors and chargés in the region. So I feel like I'm somewhere like floating between all these embassies, trying to make sure I represent all of them and all of the US government interests, and keeping an eye on our programs. So it's a little bit more intense, clearly, but also very enjoyable. Something I really enjoy doing as an extrovert.
Can we talk about sort of the road to the senior foreign service? I'm assuming that you entered as a junior officer and you've navigated through the mid-level and now you're at the senior level. Talk to us a little bit about that process and how your file maybe is reviewed and considered for promotion.
Sure. USAID is slightly different than how the State Department's Foreign Service is set up. I know this because I think I mentioned last time, I was charge d'affaires in Timor Leste for a few months and also DCM for several months. So we use the same, generally, not exactly the same, generally the same process, which is most of us came in as FS4, Foreign Service grade 4, which is entry level. Actually, I was sort of benefiting from a new system at USAID. It used to be even lower. FS6 was entry level. When I came in, we were hired as mid-level officers. So my first, per policy, my first assignment was directed to South Africa, and I. Since I already had Amharic as a language, I tested out in Amharic, which means I was able to score high enough that they were able to send me to the field. And I didn't have to take the extra classes and test out again. I scored, I think, a 3+ for speaking and a 3+ for reading out of 5. So I was one of the first FSOs, Foreign Service officers in my class to go out to the field. That helped me tremendously in terms of being able to tenure, which is another next step. You have to tenure to be able to get promoted further, but also to just be able to get commissioned as a Foreign Service officer officially. So the tenuring and the commissioning for me was also quite quick. Actually, the commissioning, the paperwork was not sent to me until years later, but I was commissioned and able to advance quickly thereafter while I was still in South Africa. When I left and moved into my next assignment in Senegal, I was already a 3. And I did keep getting promoted every 2 or 3 years. In Senegal, I might have been 3 years until I got to the 2. But that's because my mission director in South Africa had warned me, Carleen Day, the late Carleen Day. She told me, Zema, you need to stay as a program officer if you want to get to a 2 soon. And she advised me against switching to the humanitarian role that I had in Senegal, which the regional role that I described earlier. But I felt that pull, as I was talking about. I really love the program officer role, and I know it will benefit my career, but I want to do something like that where I'm actually in the field looking at programs, helping our humanitarian efforts in that region. And I was able to do that. I was very happy with that role. And after learning French there, which was another goal that I had, I did bid out more into the program office, back into the program office. The next 2 positions I had were program officer, first in Kenya, covering Sudan, Khartoum, Sudan, and then West Bank, Gaza, Israel. I was a supervisory program officer, and I went quickly from a 2 to a 1 because of, again, having that program office role, which is advising the front office. It was easy enough, and then I should mention. And like the State Department, we have Foreign Service skill sets that we have to work on and confirm or attest to in our evaluations. Every year, in order to get promoted, we do have to write our own self-evaluations, but also have the raters or supervisors vouch for us. It's a very standardized type of form. It gets reviewed by a promotion board. And they're looking, I have to say, not just for leadership. That's a key precept, foreign service precept for everyone. But they're looking at like leadership in a way that's more where you're showing your ability to adapt, to be flexible, to motivate and empower others. That's another sub-skill under that. Technical skills are, whatever backstop you're in, I think, they can differ quite significantly. But then the other two, there are four key ones. So again, leadership, technical skills. The other two are more management, like HR, human resource, financial management, procurement-wise. And within that, like how you promote diversity into that, key skill. So that was also something that I really was able to shine in, I think, in my evaluations, at the risk of bragging again. And also professionalism or communication, like how do you work with other donors? What do your interagency colleagues say about you? And there are all kinds of ratings and skills trackers that we have at USAID, and it's all codified in our and publicly available in USAID website. If you look up the agency website, you can look at these performance precepts are quite easily retrievable. And moving into the senior foreign service, or SFS, that happened for me. So after my Israel position, which is a very high profile position where I was meeting lots of important interagency officials, learning from them, working with them, it was really easy for me to move into the next step, which was the deputy mission directorship role in Juba. I was pretty young at that time, actually. It was 2015. So, it was kind of an exciting role, but I did not realize until I was in the role that my management skills could have been stronger, in the sense I had not been responsible for managing so many people. The South Sudan mission is very big. So I did have some learning to do on that side. And actually, Carleen Day came into my life again, like she always does for everyone. She was counseling senior officers at that time in Washington, had retired and was doing private consulting, but with USAID. And she gave me some really good advice that I was able to work on and think about. I kind of took some time to do that by self-selecting myself out of the senior foreign service cone. I took a position that was lower responsibilities, kind of worked on what I wanted to do. That was a position in Ethiopia that I had for a year. Then I realized I should be, since my dad was not feeling well also at that time, I just decided to come back to DC. I should have probably done that sooner, right after Juba, but it was good for me to try to be in the field a little bit longer. And then coming back to DC, I learned all those skills that I already had, some of them, but I had time to think about it. That's the beauty of USAID Washington positions. You tend to, in the field, we go hard and fast, and you really you're multitasking all the time. But while working hard in DC, working on the program office conference that I mentioned last time, and I did also have time to work on what I wanted to do, think about my next steps, be very intentional there. And a couple of very senior positions came across my lap, just as it was like pure, amazing good luck. Just as I was thinking about that next step and being told that I might be directly assigned into a senior leadership position, then I got promoted to SFS. And I was really surprised. I was really taken aback, but I I shouldn't have been, because I realize now USAID was looking at my whole experience or career throughout time, not necessarily the fact I was in a non-supervisory role and that position where I had a policy role and I was working on the program office conference and other very important and even I would say new ideas that I introduced that ended up revising how we do business in the program office. So, and across the agency, because program officers are the backbone of every mission. So those policy changes were noticed. And I think that's why I'm SFS now, Senior Foreign Service Officer, because I didn't really sit back and, see things negatively because of, the different challenges that I had been facing when I faced in Juba. In Juba, by the way, to my not to excuse myself, but that was during an ordered departure when I served there. It was a very, high stress environment that I worked there, and so that also was a skill that I've learned. I've applied everywhere else, but it was difficult at the time. Being asked to leave suddenly, and some of my colleagues saw horrible things, that caused the ordered departure and experienced it. So I was dealing with a lot with that. It was very difficult, very stressful. I also went to some personal difficulties where I went through a divorce at that time. But I regrouped and I came into myself personally and professionally in Washington, and that the agency saw that. And I think that's really the most wonderful thing that can happen in anyone's career, is where you see people's your counterparts, your leadership, but also your colleagues on the promotion boards are congratulating you by saying you are in this you're being promoted into the senior foreign service ranks. So that's a long-winded response, but my career is also kind of very
fascinating. I think Zema, that one of the reasons this career path is so interesting is no two paths are the same. You
correct.
may enter at the same time, you may even have the same backstop, and
Yes,
yet each and every career is unique.
it is.
I think
It is,
that's
and there you're right, because I've been able to diversify and do things differently. I've been able to serve usually 2 years and 1 year, which is hard if you're a woman with a family. So I think, yeah, no one's career is the same, but I think mine was one of the more unique ones in my own foreign service class that I came in with.
Mhm. Are you still in touch with your classmates?
Yes, especially nowadays we keep in touch. Believe it or not, there's an FSO that I started with almost on the same day when we were both contractors in 1996. We ended up in the same foreign service entry class in 2002. We've never served together in one country, but we've literally, like, when I was in South Africa, she was in Zimbabwe, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And now she's in West Bank Gaza, one of my favorites posts. So she and I exchange advice, and I've been able to help her network. She just got there as well, and she always checks in on me. And we had the pleasure of working together in Washington for a year or so. So I did a year directed assignment, leadership assignment in her bureau. She was sort of my supervisor then, but more than anything, we've helped each other out in this and over the years, and been very supportive friends.
That's wonderful. I, as you know, was a state officer, and state and aid, while we're siblings, we're still unique. We're part of the same family, but we're different.
Mhm.
And so when I think about AID, I think of at least colleagues in Washington, but also in the field. are very interested in the research,
Mm.
and evidence-based solutions,
Mhm.
partnerships. And to me, that appears from the outside looking in, it appears to drive the agency.
Mhm.
Misreading that?
Yes, as I
Accurate.
mentioned before, that has actually always been our mantra. Our policies are driven by technical um, knowledge and best practices. In almost everything we've done, US, I mean, this is something that makes me very happy about my role. It's about technical excellence. We try to learn from, the state of the art policies and practices, particularly when it comes to health. We have our Global Health Bureau has one of the most experienced professionals I've ever worked in. I mean, these are people who will tell you every type of disease that exists in humanity and really understand how we improve our programming. And I get that feedback all the time. Even in Suva, people have pulled me aside in meetings and said, government officials, and said, "We're so glad you're here. We were very happy with USAID's work in the past."
Mm.
And so that is the US government in general. I think that's something we need to really pat ourselves on our back on. I mean, even when there's a national security reason for us to be somewhere, we always keep an eye. I think both agencies an eye on how we're viewed. We're respecting other people, but we make sure we're representing the best of ourselves, and that's something the Foreign Service has really encouraged in me and others. And I always stay on top of my information. I had a boss in South Africa who made sure I memorized parts of the agency policies on programming, and whenever they're updated, she still checks in with me. I have a lot of great mentors. She's like, make sure you remember this, don't do this. On monitoring and evaluation, but we also actually have a fund set aside specifically for evaluations, technical evaluations, and there are specific requirements that are non-negotiable.
Okay, so let me ask you, do you have a preference being in the field or in headquarters? And if
Very
so,
good question.
why?
Oh, okay. So I have to say, I would 60% of my preference, not very strong preference, but 60 out of 100, I would put towards being in the field. When the Fiji opportunity came up, I had been thinking of going to Washington, and then everything changed when I saw it on the assignment list because it was such an exciting role to be in. I may have not mentioned this, but the agency USAID is now part of the National Security Council. So the administrator power is part of the NSC, and a very strong and active supporter of the 3D concept development, diplomacy, and defense. So when knowing that and having heard her, talk about it so passionately, I wanted to be in Fiji. I respect her so much personally, but I wanted to help implement her important focus on the 3D process or goal that the US has now. And Fiji is the best place for that. We have a focus on the PRC influence and trying to reduce that, or making sure people know we are allies in the Pacific for some of the Pacific countries.
So, Zema, we're wrapping up soon, but I'd like you to put your mentoring hat back on. And I'd like you to give some thought to any counsel that you would offer to young men and women who in the future will be listening and watching this recording and considering a career in international development. What counsel would you offer them?
That's a good question. So in my mentoring side, one thing I've always highlighted and what I would tell future generations of FSOs is to go for it. It's the best career that I think that is available to anyone that is interested in service and helping others, development writ large, and also international relations in a way. And think of it as a long-term position, and it will make more sense in a way, because it's not something that will, the career requires an exposure or an ability to be exposed to a couple of different situations, at least, to truly appreciate it. I mean, my first post, South Africa, was so great, was so wonderful. And then Senegal also lent another career, bonus for me, where I got to learn French, travel that region, that part of the world. I think joining the Foreign Service is kind of a commitment, a long-term commitment that is required. It's not necessarily the only way. I know people that have, only done a couple of years, retired, and then came back as well, and they've been perfectly fine. But for the young women specifically, as a woman myself, there are also things to consider when it comes to personal life, making sure if you're interested in having a family, keeping an eye on, where you would like to be posted. That's going to come naturally. But there are expectations that we have now, maybe that will change in the future, in terms of who takes care of children and who takes care, and even if your husband is also working, or if you're a tandem couple, serving alongside your partner, there's still expectations, and thinking about that, what that means to you. To be honest, the rate of divorces, are high, not the highest in any career, but are quite high, because there are challenges that come in these kinds of situations, and the constant moving. That's kind of the downside part to this wonderful career. But overall, when I see it, I should say, from a 20-year perspective, 20 plus years perspective, I still found it to be very, looking back again, a very encouraging lifestyle, like something that personally and professionally just has added so much value to my life. I don't think of it as just a career or a job or anything. It's just part of my life, and it's exactly what I think, put on this earth to do, and to benefit from. Also, the salary is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, when you put it together, and the benefits are even more amazing. So I'm actually well set up for my future as a woman. So and the prestige. I mean, let's be real. Like, that is to have access to the people I've had access to, having a Black diplomatic passport, and just knowing you represent your country. All of that is very uplifting as far as I'm concerned, and I think for most people it could be, for you young generations. It is what you make of it, though. If the career is, if you take care of yourself, if you're able to stay resilient, if you can find it as exciting as I have, it will give back tenfold or hundredfold. You'll get more friendships out of it than any other position. I have so many friends around the world. Both just my first swearing in ceremony. I can share the video of that with you. There were hundreds of people who called in. Almost 200, I think. And then I had also people in the room itself. And the same thing in Fiji. It was packed house, yet, and the friendships that I've created out of those assignments are, wide. People in Portugal that I know from Timor now that I'm invited to visit every year. I haven't been able to go though. The places I've seen, Bali, multiple times as a result of my assignment in East Timor. And you know very well yourself. It's just I can go on and on and on, and I don't think, looking back again, I don't think I would have been as happy in any other role, in any other career, having met a lot of different people over the years. So I just wanted to share that. Please bid for the Foreign Service. If you're interested in traveling, don't be discouraged by what you might hear about the career or whatever stories that come out of different perspectives. The long run, I think this is the most exciting thing that one person can do, even if it's a short-term assignment. It still is going to be very meaningful.
Thank you so very much for taking the time and for sharing with us your very rich and varied professional experiences.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for your time.